So in about a month time, let's just say call it a month, it hasn't even been a month, we've seen a $40,000 increase. Like, do you even, do you understand that?
I guess we were writing it out earlier today, and I was like, damn, I did pretty well for myself.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part, and it's incredible to now be on the client side because I was scared. I got through those moments of hesitation, then it was excitement, and now it's kind of like, oh, it's real. Like I'm actually watching it, real life happen, but this time to me.
REC Experience presents Real Estate, Entrepreneurship, Leadership with your host, Jazz Takhar. The REC Experience podcast is now on air.
Hey, thanks for being in the REC Experience. I'm your host, Jazz Takhar, with your girl, Laura Stewart. What's going on?
Hey, Jazzy, how's it going?
I'm excited because this is not an intro today.
This is not an intro.
This is a real episode.
You're actually having me on the podcast?
Get out of here.
I made it to the podcast?
You've done an episode.
I know, I just liked it.
Was it season 2 you did an episode?
Season 2, yeah. Some questions?
We did buying from a blueprint.
Yes, true.
Which,
interesting.
Very interesting, because today's episode it's a real story about you purchasing your first investment
real
property.
Story. Yes.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Huge congrats on that. You did your first one.
I did it.
You took the leap of faith and bought your first pre-construction condo.
I did. It was a long time in the making.
It was a long time in the making. I want to talk about everything, like going through the 10-day process, 10-day cooling period, due diligence period, what made you take the leap of faith, all of that. But before we get started, why did it take you so long?
Why does it take anyone so long? Excuses. And then a little bit of I needed to save some money. I'm also married, and so, it's not all my money, and compromise, which is sometimes fun. So, yeah.
Was that for John, like that look kind of thing? Okay,
I love you. My husband's in real estate as well, and so he has different ideas of how he would like to invest in real estate than I did. And so that kind of just, conversations, going through the motions.
So, are you okay to share a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, what was the conversations? Like, because you've been in the business now for
5 years.
5 years?
5 years in the business.
Okay.
3 years working closely with investors.
Yes.
So that kind of, I always wanted to invest in real estate. I always thought it was a smart idea. Same with my husband.
Like 3 years when you say closely working with investors, essentially as REC's director of sales and marketing.
Yes.
So that's when you really came in and worked closely with myself and Simeon.
Yes, and I got to learn from you guys
Yeah.
how to help clients invest in real estate, having not personally invested in real estate. Now, we do have a house that is now fully paid off.
That too.
As of
Congrats.
This recording, I
That's
guess.
huge,
So thank you. But that was, so my husband's thoughts on it were a little bit more along the lines of let's secure our home. Let's make sure that's good. Once we have that done, then we can go off and really start broadening our portfolio.
We see that a lot, right?
Yes.
Like even going back to like my parents' kind of age group as well, they were always taught, pay off your mortgage first.
Yes. John and I come from like relatively conservative households. And so I think it's ingrained in us that it's important to pay that down. But at the same time, we both are now in industries where we see people creating so much wealth through real estate. So we knew we wanted to do it. It's not like now that the mortgage is paid off, I'm going to start just going on trips every month because I don't have that payment.
Yeah.
It was, let's have that as like our nest egg. Not necessarily what I would have done. I think I'm a bit more risk-taking than my husband. But, again, I'm only one piece of the puzzle. So now I was at this place where I finally said, okay, I have my, we have that done. Then we kind of talked about where he wanted to place his money, which didn't really match where I wanted to because we work with a lot of pre-construction investors, and it seemed so easy. I watch people do this all the time. Every single day I help people purchase their first, second, third pre-construction condo. And it just always opened my eyes. So this is something I really want to do. That's where I think the easiest thing is, where My husband wants to get his hands a little more dirty. He wants
With
it less
what?
passive.
I'm curious. Like, what's
he
his
always talked
thoughts on
about,
that?
say, a duplex.
Okay,
Let's
got
start
it.
there. Where I was thinking, why are we going so hard
Right
out the gates? Like,
Yeah.
we've never even done this. Why
Yeah.
don't we just buy something that, like, we don't have to worry about?
Right.
And so I'm really peeling back the curtains here.
Yeah.
So
We
we just
appreciate that.
decided.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we just kind of decided we couldn't necessarily agree on strategy. And so he was going to purchase what he wants to purchase, and I'm going to purchase what I'm going to purchase.
Well, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys at least now have a strategy, a plan in place
Yeah.
where he's going to invest in something that he's comfortable with.
Yeah.
You decided to go down the pre-construction route. Now, we've been talking and looking at opportunities for our clients for the last 3 years that you've been involved here at REC. Did you kind of know right off the bat that I'm going to go down the pre-construction? I know you were more comfortable with it because you're watching other people go through it. Did you ever sway into anything else like duplex? Did your husband
a duplex did seem interesting.
Okay.
Quite frankly, we thought maybe we would keep our house that's now paid off, buy something else,
Yeah.
and rent out our house. But we kind of worked the numbers, and that wasn't really going to cash flow. Not that that was of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
But it just didn't really make sense. And quite frankly, we don't need a bigger house or a better house. It's fine the way it is. So for me, it was so easy. Like, all I had to do was put a few deposit payments down over the next couple of years. And for me, because we're not necessarily doing it together, it was the easiest thing that I could do, and the thing that I felt the most comfortable affording.
Well, I think that's important, right? You had a comfort zone in it. You trusted myself and Simeon to kind of take you down the path of how to choose a location and a building and units, which we'll talk about. But you said something earlier. You started saving money. You had to start saving money.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, Laura, like, what did you do? Like, literally, did you open up a separate account?
Okay.
Did you put it under your pillow?
Yeah.
Like, what did you do from that sense?
So
So you came up with the idea that I'm going to save.
Yeah, so
now
I
know
would
how
say
you did
about
it.
3 years ago, like, again, when I started, it was with working with you guys. I actually started making a bit more money.
Right.
It wasn't easy to save much money.
So and I are going to look at that, like, because I think we're still paying you too much sometimes. Come on.
You would say that. But, I was new to the business. I had just started in real estate. Those first couple years are tough because you don't have a lot of clients. There's not a lot of cash flow or, consistency from that respect. So it was difficult for me to save. Once, I started working with you guys in the investor group, it became a little bit more consistent.
Yes.
It wasn't like I was making money hand over fist by any means. But again, the consistency allowed me to sort of start planning a little bit better.
Right.
So what I did was I took 10%. Actually, this is something that we hear people say all the time. But I'm a decent saver. I've always been a decent saver. But you specifically said to me, open up a separate account. Like, I would save in my bank account as it was.
But it's easily accessible.
It is,
in
and
that
you
one
see
account.
it there, and you
Got
always
it.
you're thinking about it. Like, I could buy something new. I could buy a new pair of shoes. Clothes happens to be my Achilles heel in that
I think we all know
respect.
about your Fashion
Yeah.
Fridays and all that
So
kind
I
of stuff.
can get a little
it.
caught up,
Right.
And so it was nice to just the way I do it with our taxes. I get my paycheck, I put my taxes away into one account right away.
Yep.
And then right after that, I take 10% of that
What's
paycheck,
left?
and I put that into another account. And actually, I started putting even more. 10%
Okay.
didn't seem like enough.
Good for
But I
you.
knew I wasn't going to get there as fast as I wanted to. So I think
Right.
my advice would be at bare minimum, take 10%
Yep.
and put it in a separate account, and
Yep.
then you never see it again.
Yeah. I love
you
that.
can do
Right.
more.
I love that fact that when you take it right off the top, like, obviously paying taxes, like, we got to do all that. But then once you take it right off the top, that 10%, you don't see it. And because you don't see it, you don't get
never
that itch.
thought about it.
You never thought about it.
Never thought about it. And then all of a sudden, months would go by,
Yes.
and I would go and look in that account,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, oh, that's not bad.
And then also what happened is the account that you had the rest of your money in, you knew that that's what you had to spend.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't dip into the that savings account for the investment property.
It was like that never happened. That would have almost been like spending my tax money.
And then
you have to pay your taxes.
Exactly.
So that money I was not going to touch it.
And so if there's anything that someone who's listening now, right now, like when you're driving or taking a dog for a walk, or if you're watching the video, the habit of putting away money and paying yourself first has to be non-negotiable.
And I think
because you would pay
the
your
habit
taxes.
of doing it is great, but also the habit of doing it with a reason in mind, like a goal in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people are going to do something to attain pleasure, right? And that pleasure could mean a new car, it could mean a new house, it could be fashion like clothes and shoes, and yours just happen to be at this point buying an investment property, right? I also like the fact that you said you started with 10% and then you increased it.
I found ways to decrease my expenses so that
Fantastic.
I could save more faster.
And was it the expenses just dumb shit sometimes, like things that you didn't really need?
Yeah, most of it is,
Yeah.
to be honest. Yeah.
See, I always like to say, like, you got to start at 10%, okay? That's non-negotiable. But to really do this well, if you can get to whatever you're paying in taxes. So whatever you're paying the government, you should be paying that to yourself as well.
Yeah.
And it could just be for like a rainy day. You know, and so the 10% is like the habit of brushing your teeth, and then the 30% is like getting that new Oral-B electrical toothbrush.
And then it just starts to accumulate. Like it starts to go faster and faster and faster. It compounds, and then all of a sudden, I just realized I think I have enough money to do this on my own.
Right.
And so that's kind of when we started talking about like, okay, well now what? Like now I have the money.
Yep.
I spent all this time saving for it, working for it, and then saving it, and now I'm not really sure what my next step is.
So now you decided to go down the pre-construction route because you were able to pay it in installments.
Yes.
Okay. I know that you also liked the fact that you didn't need to actually get a mortgage. There's that formality of qualifying.
Well, yeah, and it's certainly in the real estate profession and many others, they'll use the last 3 years of income.
Yep.
To
Like the
gauge
average
whether or
of.
not, whether you qualify for a mortgage. And up until, a year ago, things probably were a little bleak on my end. So I'm not sure I would have qualified if I had to use 3 years of an average. So to me, this was like, I don't even have, quite frankly, it wasn't even as much that as I don't want to even worry about it yet.
Right.
I want to be able to like be in the market, in the Toronto market, take advantage of appreciation without really worrying about it. I've never been a landlord, so I have some fears about managing a tenant and how much time is that going to take, and are they easy to find, and are they going to break stuff? All those things are not necessarily something I'm that stoked about, and so this just seems super passive and easy.
And we were there to remind you that we've done it a couple of thousand times now, at least, helped investors and landlords rent out their properties, and we've heard actually dealt with like 5 horror stories. There's just not much comes up.
Common, but yet for some reason when you're purchasing it for yourself, it's still, and I hear our clients say this all the time. It's just so funny. They'll say all these things that I was thinking during the process, and I was like, it's so different being on the client side, being a buyer, and all the fears that you go through. I totally understand where all of our clients come from, and I get the fear. So now, for sure, it's going to make me a lot more sympathetic, to what they're going through, because it is a big leap. It is a big jump. It's not cheap, and there are risks. There's always considerations,
for sure.
But regardless, I just felt now was the time.
So why this location then? So you bought right at Main and Danforth in the heart of Toronto. For our out of province and out of country listeners, it's approximately, I'm going to say, about 15-minute subway ride right to Union Station, which is like the core of downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's just slightly outside of downtown Toronto. What did you like about this location? Why did you pick this location?
Besides what you just said, I would say I did consider buying something in the core.
Right.
So when we speak to our clients, we say try to buy in an area that regardless of certain factors going on in the marketplace, it's relatively stable, i.e. in the downtown core where all the jobs are. People want to work or they want to live where they work, kind of thing. And if you can't buy there, or you don't want to buy there, or you're trying to diversify, then try and find something on transit. Because what history tells us is that those properties tend to always appreciate faster, which to me tells me that there's always a constant need, supply of tenants in the area. I considered buying the downtown core. Prices in those areas are high, but I still
higher.
But
Because
I
when you
still
say high,
see them
to me that's like
higher compared to where I did buy.
Exactly.
And I still think those are great buys because I think they'll still appreciate faster. But again, my first purchase. Why was I didn't want to create too much friction. I also was doing it alone. I had support of my husband because he said, I totally support you doing what you want, but I didn't have necessarily his financial support.
Financial support, yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, this is cheaper relative to the city, but it's right on transit. So you had already mentioned it's a 13-minute stop to the Union Station, which is right downtown in the financial district. It's right on top of the subway, essentially. You can literally see it from the condo. There's streetcar. And so it had all the makings of what I think will be a really good location.
Right.
It currently is not what I would consider a AAA location.
Yes.
In that there's tons of condos built around and it's gentrified in that respect.
Right. But the growth is coming.
But the growth is
that.
coming. We know that 1,900 units to be built over the next 5 years in that location.
Now, that's not going to be the case in every place that someone is going to be looking at. But to know that even if you buy in a B location, which I think this is kind of like a B plus location, the fact that you're buying in a B plus location, though, knowing that it's going to become an A location, there's that within that delta and that spread is where investors can make money.
Well, definitely. So we've seen this happen in many areas of the city where we'll call them up and coming areas. You have to be careful, I think. You don't want to get into an up and coming area before there's really any proof of it. Because there are areas of Toronto that people have been saying have been up and coming and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
This felt good to me because when you start to see this type of construction happening and the amount of money that these developers are putting towards something, they already have the permits for the 1,900 other units.
That already passed
and approved. Plus, it's on transit. Like, I just can't. To me, that decreases a bit of that unknown, risk.
Yeah, and that's important because, like I said, just because you were able to purchase there, not everyone's going to be able to like that. That's over and done with in terms of like a screaming deal that it was. But I want people to hear it and see this, that when you're looking at an investment, these are the things that you want to look for. Yeah. Especially when it comes to pre-construction, because you're buying from a blueprint, right?
You are. And I mean, we had them all scattered out over the table. I was like, which one should I buy?
Yeah.
And it was just so funny. I was like, I think I want this unit. And I could feel the emotion getting involved myself. Yeah. And I tell people, don't let the emotion get involved. And here I am getting all frantic. And it was so busy in the sales center.
Yes.
We couldn't find someone to help. And then we would, and then they would get lost. And, you go through these moments of, I don't want to do this. I'm getting caught in the rat race here, so to speak. And then moments of like, no, I really, really want it. We have to get this done. And then at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I have my 10-day cooling period. So let me just secure it now.
Yes.
Then sleep on it.
Yes.
And if tomorrow I wake up and go, what did I just do? Yeah. I can get out of it.
Well, essentially, you can sleep on it for like 7-8 days. Like you have the 10 days. So you don't even have to wake up the next morning. It's how did you wake up the next week?
So I know it feels emotional in that time because it is fast. And if you're going to be buying pre-construction, you kind of have to buy it in that period where it's very... things are flying off the shelf, so to speak, during that height of it, because that's when you'll see the most growth.
Yeah.
But you use those 10 days to really just make sure, like, am I comfortable? Don't use that night to say, I'll walk away and I'll come back tomorrow, because prices went up 2 days later.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that, but I really want to reiterate what you just said about reserving the unit and then doing the due diligence. What I see a lot of investors do and essentially make mistakes. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see investors make, and purchasers in general. They do the due diligence, and while they're doing the due diligence, the deal is gone.
Yeah. And then they're said, oh, that would have been such a good deal, but now it's gone. And now they feel like they've lost out. And here's the thing with that too. Even if I didn't go ahead with it.
Right.
There's going to be 1,900 other units coming up for sale. Now, are those units going to be sold at a higher price than these ones? Probably.
For sure.
That's just how the game is played. And so did you lose out a little bit? Yes, but that still doesn't mean that it's not a good time to buy.
Agreed.
People are still buying condos in Yorkville. That's a highly saturated market.
Yeah.
I still think those are good buys.
And those are still going for like almost close, about $1,800
there's
price per
lineups
square
down the
foot.
street to get units there. They're still good investments.
Yeah.
But more it is if you decide you are ready, don't do the due diligence before. If you pick a project you like, it has kind of the factors that you think are good, like location, good builder, it's reputable, they're offering great incentives, then I say reserve it and then kind of sleep on it later. And
you're reserving it, and you're not just gonna like not do. We're not saying don't do the due diligence. Like that's very important. You know, in 15 years we haven't lost anyone's deposits. We're not gonna plan to start with our listeners and viewers and clients
or mine
now, or yours, right? Where you got to make sure you do the due diligence. So you're in the sales center. Mm-hmm. You picked a 2-bedroom unit. You purchased it for
$590.
Okay, why the 2-bedroom?
So it's funny. I do think if you're a first-time investor, you might want to consider going with something smaller because the price point's going to be less. However, because this was outside the core, it was in a B location, the price point still was quite good for a 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
I also bought it so early in the sales process that it felt like a good deal.
Yeah.
I also think in this specific location, you have to look at the market around. So I foresee there being families that are in this area, people who can't necessarily live in the downtown core, but they work downtown. It's a quick commute out to where this location is. It allows them to kind of grow into that neighborhood. So those were kind of the factors around the 2-bedroom.
And you said that you bought really early in the process. Mm-hmm. So you essentially bought at the stage where we always recommend to buy a unit.
Yeah.
Buy a unit in the pre-construction realm at the first stage of pricing. In fact, before it obviously hits the public, because that's late.
Way late, yeah.
Way late. Even before it hits the 50,000 realtors in the Greater Toronto area. Yes, you heard that right. There's 50,000 real estate agents in the Greater Toronto area. And there's a select group of firms and realtors which are known kind of as the platinum group. And that's not a big number. I'm talking about 20 to 25. Well,
there's platinum agents with different developers, right?
Yes.
So there's a number of us, but it depends on the developer and your relationship with the developer.
Right. And so we obviously had a strong relationship, which we get 70 projects, 60 to 70 projects at this exact same table every single year, and most of them don't check off on our due diligence for the project. Number one being, where are we at the stage of pricing?
Yeah.
We only have about 8 to 10 projects a year where we get like true access of first access pricing, and that's when we get real loud about it. Like we call and tell everyone about it because we know what happened with your unit is exactly what happened with all the other 19 clients
that we did, and
purchased.
That's also what gave me a lot more comfort. If it passed the due diligence for us to want to promote it to our clients, then it passes my due diligence.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
Sure.
So I certainly had a lot of comfort in that. And then being there that night, we were in a room, there was platinum agents with their clients as well. That's when I decided to just pick one up.
Yep. And then reserve.
So
you reserved it, you left a $5,000 check?
Yeah, $5,000 check.
So you signed everything, you executed. I remember a little bit of a shaking hand when you were signing.
I was really nervous. Well, hey, who writes checks anymore? My checkbook literally had my maiden name, Laura Tucci, on it. That's why Jazz calls me Alto, because my maiden name is Tucci. And it had an address, like when I lived with my parents, because I never used checks. So that made me laugh. But I don't know how to spell numbers anymore. Like you're just thinking, oh my God, don't mess this up. And so, I was shaking a little bit, but at the end of the day, the process was a lot of fun.
I did my first investment 12 years ago now, and I can tell you I was shaking just like you were. So it was really neat to see that.
It's funny, I shook when signing it.
Yes.
And then the second I left, a calmness came over me. Everything just felt that was the right thing to do.
Elaborate on that though. Like, what do you mean by
like it wasn't like an excitement. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And I'm like, it was almost just like the energy left.
Okay, cool.
Oddly, like it was just kind of like, I'm going to do this. Like I was very comfortable knowing that I was probably going to move forward. Obviously, I was going to have a lawyer review the documents for us, which we did, a lawyer that we work with.
Yeah.
and he reviewed it, and he kind of told me exactly what I already knew, because guess what? 99% of these things, whether you're purchasing with this developer or in this location versus something downtown core, they're written almost identically the same. They're written in favor of the developer, so always know that. But at the same time, if you want to get into the pre-construction game, that's essentially what you have to sign off on.
But we want to make sure that there is some incentives and clauses to protect the investor.
100%.
So talk about what this lawyer specifically went
looking
over
for?
with you, and what
Yeah.
was he looking for?
Yeah, so in terms of incentives, there's three main ones that we don't promote projects unless they have these three main incentives. The first one being capped development charges. So you, depending on your unit size, you want to make sure that those are capped. Essentially, the city is going to charge the developer a bunch of fees when the building gets built. What they've always done is pass those fees over onto the buyer, which is fine. But at the same time, in the next 4 years, I'd like to know what that will be.
The highest amount, like maximum.
The maximum amount. So I'll save for it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it comes in at less.
Yep.
But if it comes in at more, I know I won't be out of pocket. So it's not like I'm going to be scrambling for thousands of dollars on closing.
So no surprises.
No surprises. So they had that. The second one being the right to lease during occupancy. Huge. Because now, if I was an end user,
Yep.
this wouldn't mean anything to me, because I would just move in.
Yep.
Occupancy is the day that the developer gives you your keys. The building's safe. You can move in. But you don't technically own it yet, as title hasn't transferred. That doesn't happen until registration of the condominium corporation, which is 6 months later.
Yeah, it could be 6 months. It could even be up to, call it a year. Also, like I've seen it, up to a year.
It does happen, yeah. And
but
in that time, you're paying fees,
yes.
right?
Yes,
So
you are.
you'd
So
be out
as
of
an end
pocket.
user, like you said, who cares? Like
You're paying those fees
it's,
anyway.
It's like paying rent.
Yeah.
You know, some people say, well, I lived with my parents. Yeah, I get it, but you're taking advantage of the amenities. You have a place. It's past all the safety permits,
Yeah.
so you actually have a place that you're living. For 6 months to a year, you might be paying an occupancy fee. On average, it's about 6 months, though.
Well, and here's the thing. During that time, you're actually paying less, like the occupancy being property taxes,
Yes.
maintenance fees.
Yes.
You're paying less than you will be paying once you close, because now you have
a mortgage payment.
Your mortgage payment.
Yeah. Now you're paying a little bit also the interest portion
Right.
of the builder's mortgage, but call it a 500 square foot unit on average. You're paying about $1,500 a month in
those fees.
occupancy fee. But
Yeah.
as an investor, you can't.
You're paying that regardless.
Yes.
And if you're not able to have a tenant in to give you the income, now you're out of pocket that money.
Yes.
And that doesn't make it such a good,
So
good an investment.
we need to make sure we have the clause, which this one checked off as
Yeah.
well, that we can rent it out. So now you know that you're going to get the keys and you're going to be able to rent this out at occupancy, which is kind of cool, because your rent, specifically on your unit, because it's 2 bedrooms, how much square foot? 600 and change?
650.
You're probably going to be looking at about $1,800 or close to maybe even $2,000 off the top of my head for your occupancy fee. But your actual rent that you're going to be collecting is going to be closer to $2,700, $2,800. I think we worked out on the pro forma.
So it'll be a decent cash flow time, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's sort of the plan.
And what you're going to do with that, just so I can remind you, is that you're going to save that extra cash flow, put that in that separate account that you have. Don't buy shoes, please. And you're going to use that for your closing costs.
Right.
Right. And so you're building up a nice little fund for your closing costs already as well.
I don't have to worry about that either.
Yeah, well, you have to worry a little bit less,
No, I just
right?
mean like you're always sort of saving for something
Exactly.
in the future, right?
Third incentive.
The third incentive is the right to assign the unit.
Yeah.
Okay, so for people who don't know what that means, essentially there's a certain period of time before your unit is built that you're allowed to, what we, on the street is called flipping the paper. You're allowed to sell your contract to somebody else. There's certain stipulations. There always are. Usually it's 80 to 90% of the building has to be sold before you're allowed to do that. Construction usually has to have started.
Yep.
Because that's essentially when they've received their construction financing.
Yes.
And the reason why they want a certain amount of the building to be built as well is they don't want to be competing against you for sales.
Exactly.
Essentially, they're competing against themselves for sales. It makes sense, but I always kind of call it like an escape clause. I hope I don't have to use it personally. I hope I am able to get a mortgage and close and do exactly what we preach here at REC, which is buy and hold.
Yeah.
Get the tenant in, have them pay down the mortgage, hopefully at some point pull out enough equity and buy something else. However, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 3-4 years. If for some reason I can't close, this right to assign allows me to get out of the deal.
It's the best safety blanket when it comes to an investment in pre-construction, because you can flip the paper in case you can't close. Now, we see a lot of investors actually flip the paper and make a lot of profit. I've seen now, and we do it about 40 to 50 times a year, like for our clients, and just people who call us, right, from the podcast and say, hey, look, I saw an episode on assignments,
It's
right?
definitely not a bad strategy.
No.
Who knows? Maybe I'll use it as I'll use my right to assign as well. But my only concern is if people bank on it. And
Exactly.
Because I'm
If that's
buying
the
in
strategy
a
they're
B
gonna
plush
they're gonna be
location,
using.
I don't know over the next 4 years, is it going to appreciate enough in that time? Or is this kind of like a 10-year play, a 15-year play, where we're not going to see appreciation? There are pockets of the city where if you've bought something 20 years ago, it hasn't necessarily appreciated all that much. You know, maybe in the last 5 years it has, but there's certain times where things don't necessarily appreciate.
Yeah.
And so if you go in with the expectation that you're not going to close, and then you have to assign because you haven't saved correctly or you can't get a mortgage, then the problem becomes is now you have to sell it. There's fees associated with assigning it, and you haven't made any money.
Exactly. And that's speculating, really.
Exactly.
Like, that's all it really is. And you might do better just going down the street to Niagara Falls and, being at
And
the
having
casinos.
a lot more fun.
And having a lot more fun. So now, you had the lawyer check it off within the 10 days. In this time frame, are you having conversations at home? Like, what's going through your head at this time now?
The first day I got home, because it was a late event, just those days take long because there's so much paperwork being pushed around, you wait forever. So I didn't get home until probably midnight, and I walk in, honey, wake up. I bought a condo. Luckily, he was happy for me. And then in that time, I mean, obviously I had conversations with you guys here. I said, this is everything that the lawyer had to say. I knew that our clients were going through it literally the very next day. So it was great for me to be able to talk to them and say, look, I already got what the lawyer says. I know what's, and we always want our lawyers to review it before if we can. In terms of other conversations, I'm trying to think.
like just with yourself in your head. Were you concerned, scared, or was it now like you're almost at a point where, okay, this makes sense, everything's checked off. You have the money kind of put away. You know the strategy that, look, you might not have all the money put away for all your deposits, because the deposit structure here was 30 days,
90 days.
93 months, 6 months, and a year and a half. So it was actually it was sooner and quicker, the installments, than usual than we're used to seeing.
We've seen that are extended over a longer period of time. So I was like, and so 10% by Christmas.
Right? And so now I know that the year and a half payment, you made mention that, look, you're going to have to still put away money for that, right? And that's kind of exciting.
So we're still going to have to work.
Yeah, exactly. You can't retire yet. Can't retire. So that's kind of cool, though, like for me to see it, right? And it's the same thing when our clients are going through it, because it's a forced savings plan. You know now.
Now I know, okay, I'm going to have a $25,000 payment, let's call it, for these in 6 months. That I don't necessarily have right now. And so I'm probably going to make sure that I get to that even sooner. Like, the next time, I'm probably going to put it all, and then my next couple payments, I'm going to put everything away just so I have it. Because I want, now that my nest egg is taken care of. Okay, now what's left, and then maybe some people will get some Christmas gifts.
Right. See how it is. You bought at $590. Okay. First access pricing, yourself and our clients. And here's kind of the exciting thing that happens with pre-construction. And this is where the money's made. In about 3 days after yourself and our clients purchased, yours went up to where? Like we saw a new price list. About a week out, I would say.
We don't know verbatim what my unit is being sold for today. But I could take the exact same floor plan, 2 floors up, and look at the price of it then, and it was over $610,000.
So you bought for $590.
I bought for $590.
A week later-ish.
It was, let's call it $610 because we were on a lower floor.
Okay, so $610, that's a $20,000 increase on paper, but now your portfolio's growing.
Yeah.
But it didn't end there. Now we're about 2.5 weeks out.
Yes, and it's
So
gone
about
up.
3 weeks at the time of this
From the
recording.
time, yeah.
It's gone up again. Something similar in terms of a floor plan, square footage, facing the same way that you're facing, because views sometimes...
Yeah, there's always some factors
There's always
involved,
some factors. What's the new kind of range of what they're selling for?
I think they're now at six...
Like the last one was around 630-ish?
630?
630-ish.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so in about a month time, let's just say call it a month. It hasn't even been a month. We've seen a $40,000 increase. Like, do you even, do you understand that?
I guess we were writing it out earlier today, and I was like, damn, I did pretty well for myself.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part. And I think, as long as clients can kind of get to the point of after their 10 days, everyone's relaxed, they've decided to move forward, now just watch and see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to now be on the client side because I
Right.
was scared. I got through those moments of hesitation, then it was excitement, and now it's kind of like, oh, it's real. Like I'm actually watching it, real life happen, but this time to me.
Laura, like you're seeing, as I showed you a couple of days ago, right? The new price list.
Yeah.
Like exact same square footage, similar views are going for $630,000.
Yeah, so 40 grand like
40
that. And all I
grand like
did
that
was
is-
give a 5%
check,
deposit check.
right? And you wrote your post-dated checks.
Yeah. Obviously, those are going to be going up, but
Now, you can't do anything with that. Like, you literally cannot
No,
take
I
out the
can't- well, I can't
$40,000.
sell it.
You
I
can't
can't do
sell it.
anything
You can't
with
do
it.
the
Yes.
assignment yet. But even that doesn't matter. I've seen this happen on, like, a principal residence that I
Yes.
purchased.
Yeah.
It went up, and everyone's like, oh, my God, your price went... And I'm like, but I'm not planning to move, so
but
what
it
does it really
kind of
matter?
is nice to know.
It's very nice to
Right?
know that you got a great deal.
And it also makes me feel confident in real estate in the city of Toronto because the market decides what the value of your property is worth. This developer is selling units now $40,000 more than I bought it for. So it means it makes you feel like you got a deal.
Right.
Like it's like buying your principal resident for less than it's worth.
And you
right?
watch now because it becomes like an addiction, right? Like
I know. I'm already like, when's the next one?
When's the next one coming out? Like, how can I save money? And
Yeah.
and I heard you say to...
How can we do more sales so I can save more money?
I heard you speaking to a colleague saying, like, look, this is something that you were advising them to do together. Like,
Yes.
do a joint venture together. Consider
Get
doing...
creative.
Get creative. Because if you don't have that first 5% down in 30 days, so on your unit at $590, you're looking at about, a little less than $30,000 was that first installment. Well, if you each have $15,000 and you guys are okay to do this together, that's $15,000 each.
Well,
and
I've
then-
already gone to like my family now. Like, hey
real?
guys, like
That's cool.
We can do this. Like,
That's
I
cool.
did it.
Yeah.
My brother. Like, if you ever want to do something with me, so ask around.
Yeah.
Get creative.
Yeah.
The problem with not doing it simply because you personally, you might not have that first 25 grand. But
Yeah.
let's say, like you said, or 30.
Yeah.
Let's say you have 15.
Yep.
Someone else has 15.
Yeah.
Because if you're waiting until you've saved the 30,
Yep.
what's happened is the real estate market has gone up.
And now that
that
15
$30,000 isn't enough, and now you need 40,000. So now
$1,000.
it's 20, and now you're like, okay, you know
Right,
what I mean? So it's
right.
like try and get in as soon as you can.
Yes.
So that you're the one that's taking advantage of the market going up.
And 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing,
Definitely.
right? And so even if you have to do it as a joint venture, get creative, right? Like you were mentioning, and lawyers will take care of trust agreements, and we'll get you in touch with, or you can just look for independent mortgage brokers that can work out all the finances. Those are all logistical things, in my opinion. You got to take action. And so a
100%.
huge congrats to you once again.
Thank you.
Elto.
I'm finally part of the club.
I want you to leave our listeners and our viewers with, that one tip. And it doesn't have to be from like an investment perspective, just kind of, like that one tip that you would leave our listeners and viewers with.
One tip. I hear you ask this of our guests all the time, and they come up with answers on the spot. I don't know why I didn't think of this ahead of time.
All right, we don't script this out. I never told you I was going to go down this road.
No, but I should have known because you always ask in our real stories, like leave one tip. Honestly, and it's going to sound cliche because we hear it so often, and you kind of did did mention it. I think there are always going to be obstacles when you're trying to invest, whether it be other people who don't necessarily believe in your vision, finances per se, you're finding excuses, I can't save. So I think what my tip would be is really just to take action.
Yep.
Figure it out. Find a way to figure it out. And then you'll see that now you're on the other side of the coin and you're reaping the benefits.
Awesome. My tip for our viewers and listeners is, if you have not yet got a copy of our book, there's
shameless
no
plug.
cost. Yeah, shameless plug time. We hardly ever do it. And I see these books here Clem put on the table for us. It is our guide on all things buying, selling, and investing. If you are an REC insider, you just have to request it and we'll mail it out to you. There's no cost for it. We essentially tell people how to buy on their own, sell on their own, and invest on their own. And so if you're listening in your car right now, you can shoot us a quick email at info@reccanada.com. Again, that's info@reccanada.com. Make sure to pull over when you do it. And just request a copy of our book. And if you're watching on YouTube, just like write down in the comments section, say you want a copy of the book. Somebody from our team will get back to you and get you this guide in your hands. Elto, as always, thank you for everything you do.
Thanks for having me.
And to you, the viewers, please share, subscribe, and tell your friends. I know a lot of you are listening and watching, but you guys haven't told anyone yet that this is the best podcast of all time. Take care, guys.
This has been the REC Experience Podcast with Jazz Takhar, an REC Canada production.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching and listening. Please take a second right now to subscribe and follow us on whatever podcast platform you're watching or listening. It means the world to me. Thank you.